Okay, now it's going live for Facebook.
Welcome to the Nerd Social. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Colin.
So John's not joining us again this week. Hopefully he'll be back in a few weeks. But today we are going to talk about Black Panther and the newest episode of Loki, episode 5. But we're going to start off our conversation with Black. Did I say Black Panther at the beginning?
Yeah, you
Sorry.
did.
Black Widow. We're going to talk about Black Widow, which came out today. And we're going to talk about Loki episode 5. And we'll start talking about Black Widow the way that we usually do, just our spoiler-free thoughts about the movie, which we both saw today, and then we can get into spoiler talk about the movie before we move on to the newest episode of Loki. So, Colin, what did you think of the Black Widow movie?
Wow. There's a lot to talk about. It was on our list of most anticipated for 2021, and at the time I said that it was because yes, there were some trailers at that time, but we didn't see much at that time because it's been delayed for so long, and and also just that they were out as whether or not it was going to be on Disney Plus and stuff. And eventually they kind of did the theater and Disney Plus thing, same with Warner Brothers. So they did this very similar thing. So non-spoiler review, it's kind of like what I did on my vacay from the Avengers. So I found that to be very interesting story in itself. That was my kind of like first main impression of it. Second thing, Florence Pugh. Wow, just breakout star. I'll talk more about her. I just think that she's amazing. I think that she's like, she's been on the radar of many people in Hollywood for a while now. But wow, she's just really really good in this movie. And then another thing was about the forgettable Marvel villain. That's kind of like a trope that's been happening for all the MCU to follow. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. Plot holes, MCU plot holes from previous movies got filled, some of them better than others in terms of the filling part. And then there's a really solid post-credit scene afterwards that kind of set a lot of things up for later on. And then, but overall, pretty enjoyable. Just try, in terms of rankings, in terms of the MCU movies, I would say it's probably somewhere in the middle. It's probably not like better or worse than any of the other ones before, but yeah, those are my kind of like non-spoiler impressions of Black Widow so far.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie. I would recommend the movie. I don't know that I had any major issues with it. Like you said, I would not necessarily rank it near the top of the. I guess we're at 24 movies now, at the top of the 24 movies, but it's not at the bottom either. I enjoyed what they did. The scope is somewhat constrained. Without getting into spoilers, I think many people know that it takes place after Civil War, which was several movies back. So the repercussions of the movie can by the dint of it being a kind of a flashback movie is constrained. That being said, I enjoyed the acting and the characters, mostly, as you said, Florence Pugh's performance. I think again from the trailers you can see that she is playing against Scarlett Johansson as a widow as well, and it's interesting to see how they differentiated their personalities, because what they could have done is just said, their personalities are exactly the same, but they're completely different, and we can talk about the specifics of how they're different, and how they approach the world differently, which I appreciated, because you didn't. I mean, it would have been boring if Florence Pugh was written or acted like a mini Natasha. So I appreciated that they developed her as her own distinct character.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rachel Weisz had a little bit less to do in the movie, but she was a good addition. And I'm blanking on his name right now.
David Harbour.
David Harbour. He was hilarious. Yeah. He was silly and hilarious in the movie. I mean, as you said, the villain is somewhat forgettable. Again, this is going to get too much into spoilers about whether or not we will see villains or the villain in this movie again in the future. We may or may not, because Marvel tends to dispose of their villains. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that they did dispose of their villains. I'm just saying that's you. I don't think we've ever seen a villain come back in an MCU movie yet. Mm-hmm. Not all of them have died. I think like the Spider-Man movie, very specifically, because he doesn't. I mean, it's Spider-Man. He's a child hero. I think that's why they didn't off him in that movie. But pretty much all the other villains, except for maybe Ghost and Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think everyone else went away. It's very unclear whether or not Hela died. But anyway, I'm going. Yeah. I'm too much of a tangent. Generally speaking, I enjoyed the movie for the main four players. The people around them on the periphery are, to a certain degree, better or worse or forgettable, but I enjoyed the movie, and it was very great to actually get back to the movie theater. We had the two options for seeing this movie was going to the theater or seeing it on Premium on Demand, which is what you saw it on Premium on Demand. I saw it in the theater. Mm-hmm. We rented a theater to see it, and just invited a bunch of friends. And it was awesome after not being in the theater for over a year to see it in the theater, and actually have to wait for all the credits to roll to see the after credit scene, because we haven't had to do that in over a year. So that was the cool experience that I didn't think that I missed, but apparently I did. So.
Yeah, I skipped through it.
Yeah,
I just went right through it.
Yeah.
So it's that. Yeah, that's the beauty of it being on Disney Plus, is that I could go rewind and just kind of relive some of the more amusing parts of the movie. And just definitely a different viewing experience. I did a review with John about F9. And so I did go to the movie theater to watch F9. So, but it was very small. It was like maybe four, like it was me, a friend, and two other people in the movie theater, because we watched it really early in the morning. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, very different experience. It haven't been kind of like full-fledged like those times in which, you saw in some of the previews from Marvel, with the Endgame, the Endgame audience. It's not like anything like that, but at least it's kind of like a soft reopening in many ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so I think we have to continue talking about this. We actually have to get into spoiler talk. So if you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie. I think we both